You're listening to the Unwritable Rant podcast with your host and bourbon-soaked storyteller, Juliette Miranda.
Hey there, y'all. It's Juliette Miranda, and welcome to episode 236 of the Unwritable Rant podcast. I have a bourbon-soaked story for y'all today about recreating Woodstock and Crazytown on wheels. So, as I was working on this week's episode, we were yet again preparing for another hurricane. I guess that's just one of the fun little challenges of living down south here. And I gotta say, it is a tedious process getting our home ready. It involves hauling in all of our balcony furniture, securing every shutter on every window and door, and then stocking up on things like batteries and booze in case we're marooned without power. The French Quarter has its own preparations, and we can kind of judge the anticipated severity of a storm by the amount of sandbags we see lining the sidewalks. Fortunately, all of the preparations were completely unnecessary because the storm changed course, and the worst New Orleans saw of it was a bit of a breeze. So we are feeling incredibly fortunate for that. But I'll tell you, all of this hurricane chaos kind of reminded me of what it was like being friends with my crazy girlfriend, Crazytown. Now, believe me, I know this is not a difficult analogy to draw, seeing as how both hurricanes and Crazytown are equally tiresome, worrisome, and potentially devastating. Crazytown was just a chick who had big ideas and unpredictable logic, not to mention an affinity for shortcuts. And that's usually where the trouble started, because no matter how passionate she may have been about something, whether it was a person or a project, she had no interest in doing any actual work. Schedules and expectations were the great inconveniences of Crazytown's life. And as such, the idea of getting a real job, something in retail or fast food, that was completely unacceptable to her. So I suppose that was why she continually approached me with get-rich-quick schemes, especially when we hit college. Every week or so, she had some new plan to rake in the cash, all of which required something from me, whether it was management or sometimes bail. Most of the time, I overruled her ideas, and with good reason. Crazytown wasn't going to be able to pet sit any more than she was renovate dorm rooms. Oh yeah, that was an idea she had once. But every so often, and believe me, this wasn't all that frequent, but every so often, she would come to me with an idea that even I had to admit had potential. Like the time she wanted to stage our own rock concert. It was an idea that I had secretly toyed with for a long, long time. A sort of backyard Woodstock where I could have all of my favorite bands playing on my turf. It was both ego trip and sex fantasy, and I could see why it appealed to Crazytown. Ultimately, I always dismissed this idea as a logistical impossibility. Really, what was I going to do? Pack all of these bands in my parents' backyard? Which is what I figure Crazytown has in mind. She really wasn't one to think past the obvious and the easy. So I am shocked, just shocked, when she informs me that she already has the perfect venue picked out. Our local roller rink. She explains to me that the place already has a stage and lighting, and oh my God, how cool would it be to roller skate to a rock band? We'll make a fortune. The more she talks, the more animated she becomes, and it's not long before she is twirling around my bedroom. This is so doable, she tells me. Now, doable was my word. And it was one that she hijacked over the years to describe everything from outfits to guys. But here she was using it as I would. Only this time, I didn't immediately feel the need to also precede it with the word not. Because her idea was seemingly doable. with the right planning and preparation. So I am cautiously optimistic when I agree with her and suggest that we call the rink and price it out, maybe start to think about what we'd charge for tickets. Crazytown throws her arms around me and squeezes hard, saying, "Oh, girlie, I am way ahead of you." There are few phrases in the world to spark more terror in my soul than hearing Crazytown say that she is ahead of me. Fuck. She rummages through her bag and produces a stack of cards. They're about the size of index cards. And on them, she'd had printed, "Juliette and Crazytown present Rock N Rollin Eve." There's a date, a time, and a location included. And before I can really ingest any of this information, Crazytown announces, "I've already sold a ton of these." A ton turned out to be nearly 100 of her pseudo tickets, at $20 a piece, no less, to whom I could only assume was a random assortment of college students and drifters. Which means I am now forced to ask a question I do not want the answer to. Is this roller rink aware of any of this? Crazytown looks at me like I'm the idiot and says, I had to sell tickets to get the money to book the place." But, she's sure it won't be a problem because she totally knows the owner's son. Yeah, it was a problem. A rather large problem that took several hours of phone calls, pleas, and extortion to solve. You see, the roller rink was booked for the night that Crazytown had printed on the tickets. Fortunately, the owner, whose son had no fucking clue who Crazytown was, by the way, he was eventually willing to let us split the night. We got a 7 to 9 p.m. slot, and the other party took 10 to midnight. I wasn't entirely sure who would want to book a roller rink for such a late-night shift, but I also didn't care. I was just proud of my negotiation skills. Not only had I secured the night, I'd also convinced the owner to break protocol and allow us to sell those admission tickets by agreeing to let him keep concession stand sales. This pissed Crazytown off like you wouldn't believe. She had it in her dumb blonde head that we'd be able to resell their greasy pizza slices and squeezed cheese nachos at our own markup. Which pissed me off because, god damn it, we were barely a week into this venture and I was already sick of being her rodeo clown. She just kept arguing, who's gonna care? That roller rink is lucky we're bringing it new customers. Yeah, customers who would be giving us all their money. They'll love that. I swear, were it up to Crazytown, the world would just give her money for existing. She could have been, for the time, a far prettier but less savvy Kardashian. And this was not her crazy idea anymore. The second she slapped my name on it, for better or worse, it became a joint effort. If Crazytown wanted this to work, she was going to have to get her sticky little fingers out and let me handle the business like a reasonable and rational human being. My few business classes would have called this delegating. To me, it was maintaining sanity, because I sent Crazytown off to do what she does best, mingle and collect money. And when I put it in those terms, she was happy to oblige, and even agreed to the one condition I gave her. Do not sell more than 350 tickets. That was not a number I pulled out of my ass. Maximum capacity for the rink was just shy of 500. Subtract Crazytown's inability to count, add in her charm, and I figured 350 was a number we could all work with. Plus, after expenses, we'd stand to make about $2,000 each in profit. Over the next few weeks, everything came together better than I could have hoped. I paid the rink in full. Crazytown was occupied with ticket sales. Hell, I even booked one of Chicago's bigger bands. They were called Whiskey Midnight, and they were all of my hairband dreams rolled into one marginally talented package. I mean, it was all going so well, I started to think I had this under control, which is exactly when I started to lose control. Little complications bubbled to the surface like soap scum on the day of the show. Things I would never have even thought to anticipate. Like construction closing down the highway exit by the rink, and the owner suddenly deciding that the band couldn't use any obscenities on stage. And he meant it. He said, "I will pull the plug if I hear one obscenity." Now, this would have been useful information to have, say, a week ago and not an hour before the band was scheduled to arrive. At least then I could have given them fair warning. I mean, seeing as how Whiskey Midnight's most popular song was a delightful little tribute to Kiss called Fuck Pump. Crazytown wasn't any help either. Although she showed up on time, all she said to me was, "Don't worry, baby, this is so doable." And then she disappears into the DJ booth with several large bags and what appeared to be a large roadside gas can. Y'all, you cannot even begin to imagine how just stranded and terrified I was at this time. I mean, I was in full-on panic mode because to this point, the largest event I had been in charge of planning was a house party for my friend Charlie. And that kind of ended with an overturned refrigerator and several holes punched through walls. Now, Charlie took the fall for all of the damages, but I did not have that luxury this time. What I did have was a very cranky kitchen staff who ran out of corn dogs earlier in the day. I had 2 pimply security guards who weren't even qualified to master Dungeons and Dragons, and I had a long line of complete strangers anxiously awaiting to see a band who had yet to show up. They were supposed to be there by 6. It was now 6:20. And because cell phones were still a thing of the Jetsons cartoons, I had no way of calling the band to find out where the fuck they were. At 6:30, the lead singer rolls in through the back door. He mumbles something about having overslept and requests a plate of chicken tenders. Yeah, you can have your fucking chicken tenders when your fucking band gets here, dude. The guy casts a longing look toward the concession stand, and then he sighs like this is just, so hard. His best guess about the band guys is that they are lost in all of the highway construction, which does not bode well for an on-time start. I begin pacing and picking at myself like a farm animal as I try to come up with a backup plan. I've got to do something with all of those people out there, so at first I figure we can just let everyone in, and they'll be so busy getting their skates and grabbing food that they won't even notice the band isn't playing. And this seems reasonable enough until the owner pops his scuzzy head out of his office to loudly inform me that we cannot let anyone in until the band gear is on stage. I'm sorry, what? He motions towards the stage in the center of the rink and he says, "Liability, honey." This is apparently all of the explanation that I require, and he vanishes back into his stained office. Liability? The entire roller rink is a liability. Maybe in the 50s it had been something, but time and grime had eroded it into a thorough shithole. The guardrails are all gouged and broken. The disco ball is missing half of its mirrors. And then there was that stage. Oh, that stage. The original owner had built it himself out of plywood and hope to support his swanky new organ, and both still stood in the center of the rink, sagging and sloping slightly to the right. God damn it. Why had I ever agreed to this? Even the singer looks dubious as he sets his mic stand on stage. It has all of the stability of a chair with 2 legs, and I am very close to walking out the back door and leaving this whole mess to Crazytown when the rest of the band finally stumbles in. They are minus their roadies, who, for all I know, are still circling the highway looking for an exit ramp. But I do not care. Nor do I care that the band is tired and hungry. We have 8 minutes to make this shit happen, and goddamn it, I was going to do whatever it took. I yank a couple guys out of the kitchen and thrust them toward the band, and I say, "Here, ya got roadies now." The guitar player opens his mouth, but I cut him off and I say, "Fuck your sound check. Get your shit on stage, plug in, and play." While they get to work, I decide it's time to wrestle up Crazytown. She had been astoundingly quiet since locking herself in the DJ booth, and although it was initially a relief to not have to deal with her, the silence suddenly seemed ominous. Crazytown cracks the door open after I pound on it and yanks me inside. Bags and bottles are scattered around the tiny room, and she's taped a bunch of cardboard over the front window. There is a pungent, almost floral smell filling the air, and for a minute I wonder if she's been in there sniffing glue. Yeah, it wasn't glue. It was definitely not glue. It was Everclear. Crazytown had taken the gasoline canister I saw earlier and filled it with Everclear and Mountain Dew. Fucking terrific. I had spent the last hour having a minute-by-minute meltdown, and she was in here doing what? Bootlegging? Her plan is to sell cups of this leaded guac to people from the DJ booth. And all I can say is, "God damn it, Crazytown, where is your brain?" To her, it wasn't illegal. It was enterprising. And the worst part of it all is that I did not have time to explain the distinction to her. I glance at my watch and see that it is seconds to 7 o'clock. I know that the crowd outside is bordering on anarchy, just as well as I know there is no way in hell the band is ready to play. I relate this to Crazytown as quickly as I can, and damn if that chick doesn't even blink. She kisses my cheek and says, "Baby, you take care of the band, I'll take care of the crowd." She steps back and does a cute little pirouette, and it is then that I notice my friend has transformed herself into Jane Fonda on wheels. We're talking the works. A neon pink thong leotard with matching leg warmers, electric purple tights, and all of the hair. I reach out and touch the frozen bales of blonde hair standing on her head, and I am disturbed but impressed. That girl looked incredible. "Go," she says. "I'll buy you 10 minutes, and if the band isn't ready to play by then, you'd better hope one of them can play the organ." In my original Woodstock fantasy, I was able to kick back and lovingly watch my bands play from a sunny and private perch. I dab their brows, offer them water between sets, and music would just miraculously happen. In reality, I found myself dripping sweat as I hauled a drum set from the back of a van into a fucking roller rink, where I then had to help hoist it onto a rickety stage I wasn't even entirely sure would make it through the first song. Never has any band ever worked so hard to get on stage. There are cables flying, switches flipping, picks dropping, as all 4 guys are just scrambling around each other. And just as they get their shit together, just as those first notes are plucked, there's Crazytown at the door. She's on her skates and is leading the world's weirdest parade into the rink like a goddamn queen. Just gliding along, waving, and swishing her aerobicized ass into the middle of the rink, where she reaches up to the singer for his microphone. He hands it down and she says, "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Juliette and Crazytown's Rock N Rollin Eve featuring Midnight Whiskey." Cheers fill the rink and the band kicks off their first song. I catch Crazytown's eye before she skates off and smile as she blows me a kiss because, holy fuck, we did it. I mean, sure, she got the band's name wrong and they weren't quite in tune, but Oh my God. We'd managed to stage our own rock concert at a fucking roller rink. It was beautiful. And I was so stinking pleased, I didn't have the heart to break up Crazytown's DJ booth speakeasy. What the hell, right? I mean, people are having fun. The band is kicking ass. And now that I can finally relax, I started to appreciate a little bit of Crazytown's mad genius. She was right. This was a great idea. And that feeling stayed with me for a solid 90 minutes. It was right about that point when I made a very unfortunate realization. We didn't have an exit strategy. We knew that we were only booked at the rink from 7 to 9, but no one else knew that, and I don't think they cared. People just kept piling in. Every available space is filled with another body on wheels. And oddly, not all of them seem to be traditional music fans. I mean, rock fans, particularly back then, had kind of a defined look. I mean, yeah, they'd swap their boots for roller skates, but the Motley Crue t-shirts, the hair, all generally said, "I'm here for the band." But more and more, I'm seeing ringer tees with names on them that don't quite seem like band shirts. I mean, at least I'd never heard of a band called the Barbie Beaters, and I knew just about every rock band in the city. I shove my way to the entrance to see what our so-called security team is doing, and I find the two kids overwhelmed by a mob. They are practically in tears trying to ride herd as people push past them. What the hell is all this? On what planet is a roller rink ever this popular? Even if Crazytown had oversold her tickets, which I knew she had, she could never have reached this many people. And as I am taking all of this in, a large woman knocks into me and she asks, "Is this your fucking party?" 5 other girls flank her, all wearing matching t-shirts and tiny athletic shorts like some sort of workout girl gang. And I nod because what else can I do? This bruiser leans into me. She's shorter than I am, but what she lacks in height, she more than makes up for in meat. And she suggests that I figure out how to end things, or she'll do it for me. I didn't know who she was, but I have every reason to believe her, especially when she turns around and I see that the back of her t-shirt reads, Lady MacDeath. I need to find fucking Crazytown, and fast. There is no way to run through the rink. I can only knock and dodge until I spot Crazytown at the tail end of a skate train. Now, mind you, I'm not on roller skates. I know better than to test gravity like that. And thankfully, it gives me the stability I need to grab her free arm and rip her out of the line. The music is so loud, I can only scream words into her ear like, "Girl gang, pull the plug, we're gonna die." She yells back, and I swear to God, I think I hear her say roller derby. But that can't be right. I mean, roller derby hadn't been a thing since the 70s, right? Wrong. It turns out the late night event booked after us was indeed the motherfucking roller derby, and those girls wanted the rink now. Lady MacDeath and company have now joined us on the rink, and they are pissed. There's screaming, name-calling, and eventually Lady MacDeath jabs her finger into Crazytown's chest to make her point. Ooh, Crazytown may have looked like a gym rat, but that chick was not going to lose ground to some beefy Barbie doll beater. I'll tell you, that girl knew how to make an impression. She didn't poke back with her finger. The only thing that would have accomplished is pissing Lady MacDeath off even more. Instead, Crazytown reaches up and grabs the microphone stand off the stage and brandishes it like a battering ram. If she's going to poke back, she'll poke back hard. Lady MacDeath is clearly trying to figure out what her next move should be. Meanwhile, people are still skating around us and cheering as the band dives into their biggest crowd pleaser, which, if you'll recall from earlier, is a cheerful little tune called Fuck Pump. Son of a bitch. I'd forgotten to warn the band about the obscenity rule. Oh, God, y'all, you can't even begin to understand the chaos that is happening right now. And there is way too much for me to process at once. I don't know what to do. Do I back up Crazytown? Do I dodge the skaters as they brush past me? Or do I end what is a seriously good song just to save my own ass? Here is the one thing I know in the middle of all of this insanity. I was going to fall on my ass no matter what I did. You just can't stop a hurricane. You can only ride it out. So that's what I did. It wasn't giving in. It was just accepting the inevitable, and I figured I might as well go down having fun. I grabbed the arm of a large, hunky dude who skates by, and I let him hoist me on his shoulders. Next thing you know, I am flying around that rink, screaming out the lyrics of Fuck Pump. It is just as the band hits the break, the part which involves a round of callbacks from the audience. I say fuck, you say pump, fuck, pump, fuck, pump. Well, that is the moment when everything stops. The lights come on, the sound is cut, and I go tumbling to the ground. Never mind the mob scene. Never mind the two insane chicks beating the shit out of each other. No. It was the word fuck that got the owner out of his office to pull the plug. Not that it mattered, really, because by that point, the fire marshal and the cops have showed up, and they're in the process of breaking everything up. 3 hours later, Crazytown and I find ourselves sitting on the curb of the now empty roller rink parking lot. Her gas can booze, which thankfully was never discovered, it's at our feet. There's only a splash or two left, and we pass it back and forth until the plastic canister is dry. A few arrests had been made that night, but Crazytown and I were allowed to walk away. Although not entirely unscathed. The stiff locks of Crazytown's hair are drooping now, and she's managed to rip a hole in her tights. My ankle is rapidly swelling to a new and uncomfortable shape. But it is our pockets that hurt the most. In order to make things right with the roller derby girls, who obviously never got to play that night, we covered their rink rental. After that, and the band fee, and all of the fines and damages the rink and city would levy on us, we were left with $75 and change. But I let Crazytown keep it. After all, it was her idea. And it almost was a good one. Cheers, y'all. Whew. Well, thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Unwritable Rant podcast. If you were curious what I am drinking these days, what bourbon is fueling these boozy stories, head on over to my YouTube channel, youtube.com/Juliette Miranda. Every Monday night, I host Bourbon-Soaked Live. It starts at 7 p.m. Central Time, and it is the perfect place to hang out for conversation and booze. We have a great group of people that hang out in the chat. So I hope I'll see you there, Monday night, 7 p.m. And don't forget, the unwritablерant.com has all the back episodes of this podcast and a fun little link called Buy Me a Drink, where you can make a one-time donation to support this podcast. So that's enough out of me, y'all. I hope you have a great week. I'll be back next Sunday to chat with you some more. Cheers.
Go to theunwritablерant.com and sign up to get early access to interviews and new videos. And don't forget to connect with Juliette on Twitter @MorningNeurosis.
Girl, you as pretty as a Sunday morning, standing on the corner at Carondelet. What you say we make our way up to Bourbon, a couple hurricanes and a hand grenade, and get blown away. Let the chips fall where they may. If it's all the same, what you say, bon ton, hey, pretty mama, I can smell the gumbo. Sweetest taste of honeysuckle on my lips. Good God Almighty, I can hear the trombone. Every heart ought to beat to a rhythm like this. Come a little closer, honey, let me hold you. Nothing tastes better than a bourbon kiss. You can be the flower on my magnolia. Every heart ought to beat to a rhythm